everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Balkan Talks. My name is Sanir Pasalic, and I'm here with my co-host and colleague,
Mr.Slavic. Hello, everybody.
So great to have you back with us today. We have another guest today. His name is Dino Karajic. He's sort of famous for something, and I'll let him introduce himself a little bit. In a second, I just want to announce that the topic of today currently is going to be about youth empowerment in the Western Balkans. And Dino is, well, he'll speak about this in a second, but he's sort of engaged in certain projects. He's an entrepreneur. He's a YouTuber. Dino, please take it away. Tell us something about yourself.
Well, hello, everyone. My name is Dino Karajic. I'm known on the internet as Mr.Slavic on YouTube. In my daily life, I work as a project manager in IT. I'm also an entrepreneur. Entrepreneurship is quite a big term to say so. To be more specific, I do stock trading, consultancy, I'm building websites, and I'm also in real estate. So I'm doing quite some stuff besides my job and my hobby, which is YouTube. And that's a bit about me and what I do in my daily life.
Quite an active life you have. Quite a hard-working go-getter, I would say.
Very cool to hear, though.
Yeah, definitely. That's the kind of people that we like to hang with.
Yeah.
And so, how long have you been doing this entrepreneurship, this YouTube?
Well,
why?
It started from 16, trying to get a moped, something stupid, and not having the money for it, and then realizing, hey, I got to work for it. You find out quite fast that earning your money isn't that easy and that wages aren't that high, and you have to work a long time to get something that's a bit more expensive, especially when you're younger. So I decided to search for ways and learn myself new skills, which were more rewarding than the job I was doing back then, because I think I was working in a warehouse for Mercedes car parts and just putting them into boxes, which wasn't that great. But you have to start somewhere.
That's very true, yeah.
I agree. Yeah, I worked a summer in a factory as well after high school. It was really good. Could pay my partying back then.
Yeah, exactly.
Now I'm married. I don't party anymore.
Oh, is that true?
I party with my wife.
Still partying, though.
Yeah, still partying, though. Very cool to hear, and I think for today, I think that's also very interesting because we're going to be talking about youth empowerment. Very interesting topic, and I think, well, as you're saying, you got to work for a moped. I think that's some form of youth empowerment that maybe you call it something stupid, but I think it is like the dream, how it begins, the entrepreneurial dream. You start small and you go big.
Yeah, that's true.
About today's topic, youth empowerment, Sanu, would you maybe want to introduce the topic a little bit?
Yeah, of course. So I think everybody can agree that the youth, I hope everybody can agree that the youth of today is the future of tomorrow. I would say that we're still youth. I mean, I'm not entirely a teenager anymore, but definitely the younger generations of today, anywhere really, not just the Balkans, but especially in the Balkans, when it comes to Europe, they're going to be deciding the future and the prosperity, the economic prosperity of the region. And I think they have a very important role to play. I think that when you look at, post-war Balkans, former Yugoslavia, the youth, the newer generations, they have, I think, a good opportunity to leave the animosity, the politics of the past that has caused the harm in the past, leave that behind them and work together to build a better future. And that's why I think, at least me personally, but I'm sure Sandra as well, and I'm sure you as well.
Definitely.
Yeah, that it's important to stimulate, to promote, and to help youth on their way to own projects, empower them through education, entrepreneurship, and so on. I think you'd agree, right?
Yes, I agree, definitely. If you're looking at the economic system today in Bosnia and Herzegovina, the older generation is doing hand labor and farming, etc. But when you look at a younger generation, they're working more with computers. And because we have internet worldwide, and we didn't have that, well, we did, but at the beginning of the war, it was still in development and not in that region. And this younger generation now has the opportunity to work and learn everything they want just because of the arrival of internet. And that also means working remotely because, in the Netherlands, I, for example, work 2 days at home. So if I can work from home, I can work from any place in the world. Yesterday, I was in Slovenia and I was doing my calls, my emails and everything from a hotel room in Slovenia, and just life and work goes on. So it's definitely an opportunity for all the young kids to learn skills on the internet, because schools aren't what they used to be. And the internet holds all the information and all the things that you would like to know. You just need to find it and search for it. So you need to be motivated.
I would also say not just the schools aren't what they used to be, but the economy isn't what it used to be.
Exactly.
The world changed.
Correct.
And what you mentioned, the older generations as well, working. Not everybody, obviously, but the classical socialist factory workers,
correct,
our parents' generation, that kind of world doesn't exist anymore. And maybe at some point in the past, it was possible to finish high school and get a job right away in a factory or at a farm and just live a decent life.
Yeah,
it's not the case anymore. And I think that a lot of the, let's say, the slower development that we may have seen in the past years in the Balkans may be because people still kind of were expecting this old way of working, right?
Correct.
But what I do find interesting is that, like, that's why I find it so nice to mention IT too, because if you would go back to our first episode, you remember we talked with Amar Gurgic about outsourcing of IT and how prevalent the IT sector is now in the Western Balkans and in countries like, he gave us examples of their company doing business with young people in Novi Sad who are building apps and software for them, and how interesting it is also for Western companies to outsource their IT to the Western Balkans, because you have young people who are diving into this new world of being their own entrepreneurs, doing their own software companies, running it themselves, but also being able to work internationally and work from where you want to. That's why I find it very interesting how you mentioned this. Obviously also a plug for our first episode, go listen. But that's why I find it also interesting, Sani, what you're saying, that it is a very important thing to understand, like, how this world is shifting in a certain sense.
Yeah, right, true. Because most of the older generation, well, people to say so, and also the younger generation of kids are looking to the negative sides of the economy, but they don't see the opportunities. And it's...
In the region, you mean?
Yeah, in the region. It's just a bit of a mindset problem that there is, because their parents are teaching them that it could be better and that they have to work and that they have to do labor because that's good because of their own previous experiences. But
it might also be unfair when you look at, for example, your cousins in abroad.
Exactly.
Having the stuff and the things, and maybe the
comparisons will be
the comparison is going to be very hard. Difficult. Yeah,
but I think this is also where the philosophy of our older generation, I think, like almost every child of a Balkan parent can relate to the focus a parent puts on education and school. Like, if you don't have a diploma, you're not worth anything.
Yeah, that's not the case anymore.
And especially if you're not an engineer or a doctor or a lawyer or
exactly,
any of those.
And notice, for example, how we live in the Netherlands, right? For the people that haven't figured that one out yet, but we live in the Netherlands. But in the Western world, and especially in the Netherlands, there's a big emphasis on soft skills, not just the courses that you follow in school, but also you need to learn how to present, how to communicate in a meeting, how to how to sell, how to just walk in a certain way, just...
Exactly, how to... hold your hands during a meeting or something, body language, like really, for example, basic stuff.
But I think that, like, this example of our parents, like, putting so much emphasis on this and that not being entirely congruent maybe with the Western world and maybe also with the way the Western Balkans is developing towards a more modern society with also this tech IT, that the problem is that, like, I experienced this also in my own life. Like, when I was 18, I became a city councillor in Emmen, up north. Mm-hmm. And, like, instead, my parents, especially my dad, like, he was more concerned with me finishing my school than with complimenting and supporting me in what I was doing politically. Yeah. And that's, like, I think, a great example of, like, trying to do things which were not, like, in the system of education. And if it didn't fit in that system, it wasn't as interesting or as important for them. And the beautiful thing was that, like, maybe 2 years ago, he said to me, like, he had a co-worker who said to him, like, "Oh, your son became a city councillor. If I had to choose for my daughter, either go to uni or become a city councillor at 18, I would let her become a city councillor." My dad was like, why? How would you make this choice? And like 2 years ago, it was like, oh, now I understand. Like, now I've been living here for 20 years. Now I understand. So I think this shift is very interesting to observe, and maybe difficult in the Western Balkans to.
But it's happening. I think it's happening.
It's happening.
I see a lot of good things happening right now. So.
Yeah, because kids are taking their own initiative to go and do something themselves instead of actually listening to their parents. Because, for example, one of the kids who worked with me, I was looking for a designer, some CSS skills, and some guy that could just run over my website, check everything, and change some colors, make some new frames, some basic stuff. And it's really expensive in the Netherlands. And he's like, hey, I watched some videos, I've been practicing myself, and I didn't expect much because he was 16. I was like, hey, well, give it a shot, it's not something important to me, so you can go ahead and do your thing. And it turned out that he made like an awesome work. He made an awesome template. He just finished the site completely, and I was so impressed. And I was like, where did you learn this? Like, I do this on the side when I get home because I'm interested into this. And what are you studying? Yeah, currently something with physics in school because my dad told me that engineering and stuff is really important. And he's studying this but doing something completely different on the side. So he's just doing school to satisfy his parents and not really for himself. And I think that's a wrong thing to do. But he took the initiative to actually start something himself on the side, and I paid him for half for what I got from my customer, and it was like his dad's wage what he received, and he just screamed like, "Whoa, this is way too much!" Yeah. When he told his parents, his father was in shock. He was like, "Wow, how did you earn this?" And he just couldn't believe that he earned it because of learning a skill on YouTube.
Yeah. I think this is a great example of like younger generation taking ownership, doing their own thing, but then. When we're talking about youth empowerment for the Western Balkans, it is very difficult in a certain sense that you do see that the younger generation is leaving a lot. There's no secret that you see a lot of younger people leaving the Western Balkans and looking for treasure in Germany, in the Netherlands, in the US, and often maybe also coming back disillusioned about what is possible and what isn't.
Correct.
But aside from that, like, how do you see this happening then? Like, why do you think that even though there are people who take ownership, there's still so many people leaving, even the opportunities?
Yeah, not everybody sees those opportunities, and that's the problem. There is a mindset. It's really hard to explain because there is a mindset where your parents and your expectations are not met, and they're not met 1, 2, 3, 4 years in a row. And every day you're gonna have hope for another opportunity, and again, nothing comes. No job opportunity, not being able to find a place where you can do what is it called? For your school, your praktijkervaring.
Just practical experience.
Practical experience. What is it?
At a business, just do internship.
Internships, exactly. That was the word I was looking for. Internships at a company. They're not paid at all. Not that that's a problem, but they're not there. And I have friends currently studying there. They're studying IT, pharmacists, etc. I also have some friends who left not so long ago, 2 years ago, to America. One of them was actually a news presenter in Bosnia and Herzegovina, and she graduated journalism, and she was a presenter on television, daily TV, Face TV, maybe you know it. She was a presenter there and just left. She had a job, but it wasn't good enough for her.
Yeah, I've heard this as well. Like, it's not just the job, it's also so it's, for example, the state of affairs in general. Correct. So, for example, even though you have maybe a good job, you have kids, you want your kids to have a good education.
Correct.
And you're not going to find maybe the best available education in the world in the Balkans, but you know that your cousin in Germany, his kids are attending really good schools, and you have an education that you can work with. So why not, right? It's not just the jobs. So even if there's good paying jobs, you're still in a very difficult environment, let's say.
Correct. Well, with my friends, you have the example that they're going to an international school in Bosnia. So there are still opportunities for good education. English is also improving when it comes to education.
It's expensive, right? I mean, it would be more expensive, I imagine.
Yes,
right? So not everybody could.
Exactly, not everybody could afford it. So that's a dilemma that they currently have. But I think that when you're not let down, when you do have an opportunity, and it fits your profile, the things that you're looking for, and it's there in your own country, most of them didn't want to leave. So the friends and the people that I know that are leaving and that have left already, so for example, that news reporter, she still has a hard time living in the USA, even though she has everything she wants in the world. So it's kind of an illusion that everything is perfect or greener on the other side, because you're going to miss out on a lot when it comes to your personal life, when it comes to family, friends, and also though she has a good life in America right now, she still writes us every day and says how much she misses home. So there is, you're going after more of a secure, stable life when it comes to finances and for the future of your kids. But when it comes to your personal life and your own happiness, to be honest, because you cannot say that they're really happy outside of Bosnia, then you're giving in a part of your happiness just for a bit more of a financial, secure life, which is...
So what would
difficult trade-off.
Difficult, exactly.
It is, I think. So it remains the case that it is not an ideal situation that people are leaving, but we understand why they might be leaving. Although we do think that, I think we share the opinion that a lot of people don't actually see the opportunities that do exist, or the reasons that they might want to stay, or people are not looking at all. So I'm interested to hear from you what your views are on what can we maybe do, or not we, but everybody, what can we say to these people, to these young people living there, to try and convince them that there are opportunities, that it is worth staying? And
one of the things that I've been witnessing is that people from outside, from the so-called diaspora, are coming back to Bosnia and Herzegovina. So they're living abroad. Bosnians who studied abroad are living abroad, working abroad. They come back and they only tell about how good everything is in Germany, in Austria, and in all the other places that are living it. And they listen to those stories. Everybody in Bosnia is like, oh, wow, that's great. I want to have that too. But you can have that too, but you don't have to go to Austria for that, or to Germany. Easier said than done, as I am living outside of Bosnia. People are like, yeah, you're just saying that, but you're living abroad yourself as well. That's because I didn't have a choice. I was born here, and I couldn't pick for myself to be born in Bosnia. If I had the choice and I could go back earlier on, then I would have done it. One of the opportunities that I see, or that I've been seeing lately, which are easy wins, to say so, with the minimum amount of investment, stuff that's already there. Let's say tourism. We already have some nice waterfalls, rafting activities, quad driving, riding horses in the Bosnian wildlands, just great things to do, outdoor activities, hiking. There's so much stuff that I've done throughout the years, throughout different places in Bosnia. So not only in one place, you cannot say it's only one city. No, I've traveled like the entire Balkans, the ex-Yugoslav countries, multiple times.
Where have you been? What countries have you visited?
I have visited all the former Yugoslav countries.
All of them?
All of them,
Nice.
Yes.
Okay.
And I visited the most touristic places as well, but also smaller cities. I don't go to your country just like a normal tourist and visit only the McDonald's and some sightseeing for a picture.
You also have these interesting bunkers in Albania. I've heard some fun things about that.
What are they called?
There's a bunkers in Albania.
Oh, right.
If you want to get this joke, episode 3.
Nice. We're plugging our own old episodes.
Very smooth.
That's great. But what the opportunities are, for example, tourism. You have all these small individual players who are only organizing quad rides and not doing anything else. Then you have a great restaurant, like almost in the corner of on the street, let's say. So from the place where you start your quad drive experience. Nobody's actually going to each other and connecting in order to make some tourist package. Let's say you have a tourist all-inclusive package where you can go horse riding or quad driving, you can go rafting, and at the end of a long day you have a dinner and a stay at a nice hotel. They're all individual players, and they're not seeing the added value they can give to a visitor as a tourist when working together. And this is something that I'm interested in, and something I'm thinking about to start up in the near future in Bosnia, just to connect all the individual players. And
I see, and that's maybe something that also somebody in Bosnia, younger person, could actually do themselves as well. There's lots of things, and all it would require is that you pick up the phone or write somebody on Facebook or LinkedIn, and get it all sorted.
You can make a website, and that's about it, to present yourself as one brand, but actually you're the guy who's behind it and actually networking with all those small individuals. So that's one of the things or opportunities that are low investment and are low risk for younger people who don't have a lot of money, but do have the skill to set up, for example, a website, or know someone who can set it up pretty cheap for them.
Right.
But I think this is one of the great examples of what is possible when you go and invest your time and try to build up something.
Yeah.
Because now that's why I also find it interesting that you mentioned like the diaspora and people coming over and then listening to those stories, and obviously like people who leave in a later stage of life and then come back, and the diaspora who are born somewhere else is two very different things.
Yeah.
But what I would like to mention here is that one of the things that what you're mentioning too is that I guess that's something like things that are happening here, things that are happening in the West, in the US, in the Netherlands, Australia, all of these countries, but they could easily be copy-pasted to the Western Balkans if just somebody put in the effort to do those projects.
So what is actually, at least in my view, the main thing that we should be trying to discuss with people, with young people especially, because I think it's valuable for everybody, but I think the older generations are already set in their ways and they're harder to convince of other things. But let's say for young people, is the way in which to think about work and jobs and life. So it's how you think about these things, like a mindset, right? That's the most important thing, and that's the case. That's the case everywhere. That's the case here as well. Yep. So if you want to,
it's all about mindset.
It's all about mindset, I would say. So here you can live a comfortable life, and it's a given that there's better. Let's say the state, the country is better organized. We have welfare, for example. But if you're gonna, sit and do nothing on welfare, then you're not gonna be very happy or productive or anything.
Your life wouldn't be much better than somebody on welfare in the Western Balkans. So
or somebody exactly, or somebody just getting going drinking coffees with his friends and all that.
But that's why sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no problem. I was just going to say maybe that's something that we should focus on, as maybe coaching or giving the right example or I don't know, helping people who want to be helped, who want to help themselves, that genuinely may not have the means to get it done, but really want to, they don't know where to start.
Exactly.
But that's one of the projects that's interesting to mention, that what the Bosnian government is doing right now, and it's actually something we're playing a part into soon,
right?
Is that they're starting this project of, they've been doing it for a year, and this year they're organizing the second edition. They're actually organizing a conference next month in June, where they're going to be inviting the whole worldwide diaspora, so the whole Bosnian diaspora, to come over to Bosnia and to organize some kind of, they call it the transfer znanja for our Balkan listeners.
Knowledge transfer.
You can translate that. Knowledge transfer and a transfer of experience between diaspora among themselves. So the worldwide diaspora to know, what is diaspora doing in Australia, what they're doing in Europe, what they're doing in the US. But also, and I think that's more important in what we're talking about right now, is that they're also trying to accommodate this transfer between diaspora and people who are living in Bosnia. And that's why it's super interesting that this year the theme of the conference is going to be youth. It's going to be the next generation. So I find this one of the projects which is one of the projects which I find is really smart by the Bosnian government. I think this could be an example for also the Serbian government and other governments that have a big diaspora around the world, is that you can in this way organize and mobilize your diaspora to use it again for your own country. It's one of the unique advantages that, even though it's the reason why there is a diaspora is horrible, of course, it is one of the benefits, you could call it that way, of having this diaspora. If it's there and it has this power in a certain sense. Why don't we use it? And I think this is very interesting. And we are actually going, at least I am going in June to represent WBBG, our company, at the conference. I'm going to be giving a talk about what we've been doing in the Netherlands, in the Benelux region. So also people stay tuned for that in June. It's going to be super interesting what our experience will be there and what we'll be able to tell people. But yeah, I think this is one of the ways we could, show up with opportunities and accommodate this knowledge transfer.
I think so, and I think so definitely. Also, we should definitely on an individual level try and be an example and explain to people, there's other ways and there's loads of opportunities, and you just need to, pick up your whatever it is you need for your job and do the job and start working. And another thing that's more general, you need to be patient. I think maybe that's a cliche, if you've been listening to people online, some speakers, but a lot of people that I've noticed, they want to have results right away or in a week or in a month. It's not going to happen within a year, right? You're going to have to be really lucky. You're going to have to work for at least 5-6 years to set something up, and hoping that you will, if you don't get the job, for example, that you want right away with the pay that you want right away, that's fine, but you have to start somewhere. You do that job, you do it well, they're going to raise your pay. You're going to gain experience even if they don't raise your pay. That's knowledge that you can use in other situations. That's the way people should be thinking, I think, especially the youth.
But what you said about leading by example and being examples, one of the questions that triggers in my mind then what becomes difficult in the Western Balkans, that we talked before about the problems of the older generation, maybe having more rigid thinking of what is success and what is education and those kind of things. If they're supposed to be the examples for the younger generation, I think we can understand that they maybe need different examples. But how can you maybe trigger this change? Maybe you can say something about that, Dino.
Well, what we do have is what you said, a lot of people living abroad, a lot of Bosnians who were were born in another country due to war. They are successful outside of Bosnia. They have their own companies and everything else. They're looking for employees. But one of the things that's really weird to me, and a trend that I'm seeing, is people who are actually still born in Bosnia, went to Germany, started a successful company, have multiple employees, are becoming really rich actually. So above a standard living, earning above a standard living. And the crazy thing is that when they're looking for employees for small tasks, which can be done remotely, so IT tasks, maintenance work from a website, something in this direction, they're still looking in Germany, they're still looking in Austria, they're still looking in the Netherlands. It's really weird that they never think of home first, where they have those people, they visit every year, they see their own family, they see what's going on, they see those kids with potential, always talk about how smart those kids are, how good they're learning in school, etc. But nobody is thinking about, hey, I'm looking for a new employee, I'm running a company in Germany, why don't I look in Bosnia? Maybe there is someone from the city that I was born in, someone that my aunt knows, someone that my friend knows who's still there.
Why do you think that's happening? Why aren't they looking?
I think that it has to do with the knowledge that they have of the region. They're not really, let's say, convinced that the people there are up for the job. They still think that there is a big difference when it comes to knowledge. But if you look at the children and the older generation in Bosnia, the children are starting to speak English way better than the older people like my dad or my mom. They don't speak English at all. But my nephews and cousins speak English, even though it's with an accent or not on a perfect level. I can talk to them in English. So this is a skill that they're acquiring in school that their parents don't have, but that they can use. And their level is rising, but the people who are outside of Bosnia are not connected enough with the younger generation there in order to see the changes of the country. They're only listening to their grandpa, grandma, and they're there for a short amount of time, only a month a year. But if you spend some more time there, I think the longest period I've been there is 5 or 6 months connected. And also going to universities, even though I wasn't a student, it was kind of a funny thing, but eventually it turned out to be a great experience because I saw how smart those kids were and how up to date they were when it comes to IT or other directions. Also, tourist attractions. They were organizing their own rafting events with a rafting expert who knew all the routes, who was explaining them how the business works. They were starting their own thing. Yeah. And this is something that they're afraid of, a risk that they're not willing to take.
I wanna ask you something else, because we talked, like, just before this, we also talked about, how we can bring the message out to convince people that there are opportunities to stay. Yourself are actually active on digital media quite a lot. You're a YouTuber.
Yeah, correct.
Mr.Slavic, that's your handle?
Yeah, that's
your name.
That's my tag name or my online name, to say so.
So I'll ask you to tell us something about that project as well. But also, what role do you see for maybe the new media in changing the landscape economically for the Balkans, but also for the youth? Because
that's a great question. What I've been using YouTube for is a platform to make comedy or make, let's say, fun videos. But it's also a platform to communicate to a younger generation that's in Bosnia, because they're all watching YouTube. Everybody watches YouTube or uses social media. And it's a great way to interact with a younger group of Bosnians that wouldn't be on, I would say, let's say, something else like LinkedIn, for example. Yeah. They're not seeing the power of social media, even though they're on Facebook all the time. They're watching YouTube videos all the time. A couple of years ago, I saw a video of a famous Bosnian YouTuber, Amir Hadžić. He was on television, I think it was 2 or 3 days ago, invited by a Bosnian TV program to talk about this. A day before that, he had a video, which is quite a good reference. He was explaining his life as a worker, as an employee. Didn't get paid in Bosnia, worked at different jobs as a wage or as a waiter, got a low wage, didn't get paid. He resigned, etc., etc., etc. And then one day he said, "Hey, I could use social media to address this problem." And he started making videos about that. He got popular and got a huge following. And he started his own digital company, making videos, making websites. And in this way, he's now earning like above standard of living. Like I think he earns more than me actually in the Netherlands, in Bosnia. And he has, I think it's around 400,000 followers right now. And he triggered me into doing the same thing, but only on an English language. He's doing it in Bosnian, I'm doing it in English, in order to reach more people, and also to educate people more about the region there, because on a history-based level, there is not that information a lot of information to say so.
What I found so powerful about that YouTuber is how the comedy that he uses kind of diffuses and makes light of the situation, the political situation in the Balkans, in Bosnia, makes fun of it, and it kind of brings all people that share this same, they're aware of the absurdity sometimes, brings them together, and also actually brings other people to the fold as well. Like, you're right, it's actually quite silly what we're doing sometimes, so maybe we should change. And it kind of, I'm sure that this kind of trend, and yours as well, Mr.Slavic, in English, is bringing about change in the way of thinking, about Bosnia, about the old ethnic political divides.
Exactly.
How I think the internet brought people together through 9gag and 4chan and the memes.
It's true.
Because everybody laughs about the same things, no matter your nationality or your religion. Basically, you can come together and laugh at celebrities doing stupid stuff on the internet. So.
But let's be honest, like without humor about what's happening in the Western Balkans, like we would have haven't made it. Like you have to have some kind of humor, be able to see the absurdity and irony and stupidity of so many things in order to deal with it in a certain sense. True. I think too.
Yeah.
But I think especially, and I think that's one of the good points we're making here, is that the role of new media in getting out a message, and especially for the younger generations using this media, that, like, if I go back to my own question, I will be answering my own question. But I think that one of the ways that we can indeed maybe change this pattern and give them new role models and give them other role models than the rigid system is by using this new media and using new routes of getting the message out to people, getting it in their faces, having them listen to it. And maybe this podcast is one of the ways too. Who knows?
Who knows? Maybe.
Yeah, it's just connecting people through the same interests. And if you're having the same mindset, and Amir Hadjic is having a really positive mindset and really breaking all the, let's say, standard lines of thinking or the standard ways of thinking, and he's breaking all those lines. And not a lot of people are comfortable of doing that by themselves.
Yeah.
And when they're on the internet, they feel kind of safe to say so because they're behind the screen. But when 400,000 or 500,000 people join you and write comments about the same thing, you actually realize that that's almost 500,000 young people only watching those videos who are thinking in the same way. And they are talking about it in the comment section. They're laughing about it. They're having fun. And it doesn't matter what you said. It doesn't matter which religion you have or which ethnicity. People just hang out together. And they're creating this community that's not really accepted or presented by the politics, but is on the new media.
Right.
I think one of the biggest endorphin hits that a young person can get is getting top comment on a picture or a YouTube video or somewhere. Getting the most likes.
Exactly, yeah. Well, and that community that is being built,
correct,
by Mr. Hadjic and by you and by others, that can be a platform for further change. Also for changing the mindset about work, about education, about opportunities, and maybe even convince people to, hey, let's stay here, let's do something here, let's build something here.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The designer that I found that I spoke about earlier, the 16-year-old guy, he was actually a fan of Amir Hadjic, and I know him personally. We did some live streams together and stuff, something else, completely different topic, but that's the way, because people realize, I think the same way as him, his followers also shifted to my channel, and
of course,
you can see that they're actually looking for more people and more, let's say, more influencers who are thinking the same way, who are having this mindset. So they really want to see and hear positive stuff, but they're not hearing it on their own media, so they go on the internet to find it. And that's how I found him, and he's a great designer, and I still use him for some gigs. And I'm teaching them the world of internet. I'm telling him, hey, you're doing great work. You have to make a print screen of this. Let me write a reference for you and make a LinkedIn profile. Because if you have a LinkedIn profile, you're already connecting on a business level to, let's say, Western countries, which is used to get jobs.
Of course, yeah.
And that's something that I don't see a lot in Bosnia. LinkedIn profile. So that's something that, people, the younger generation, do not know really a lot about. So there are still opportunities that they don't know about, which they can use at their advantage and use to get jobs and use to do freelance work abroad, still with low costs, low effort to say so. So it's still kind of a lazy thing, but it helps you out enormously.
And you mentioned something about this idea you had for this tourism project in Bosnia and those kind of things. Mm-hmm. Do you have maybe other ideas of what you might do with business in the Western Balkans, and maybe also some ways in which you can get the youth to play a part in that? Or what's your vision on that?
Well, I'm an IT guy, so I know how easy it is to work remotely with IT stuff. What I've been looking at is, hey, there are not a lot of big companies who are giving opportunities to a younger generation for work or for internships. But you still have this younger generation, let's say, who are in their early 30s, late 20s, something like that, who have relevant work experience, who are still working, are planning to go or to leave Bosnia because they're not earning enough. But what if you come in as a Western company? If you're looking at their wages, well, let's say a programmer in the Netherlands on average earns like 3,000 euros a month. The average programmer in Bosnia, it's almost funny to me, he earns around 900 to 1,000 euros. And that's, average. That's actually a high wage compared to the average wage, which is around let's say 300 marks, 400 marks, which is 150 euros. If you're looking at highly educated people who have working experience and can prove that to you, and you're paying them, let's say, 1,000 euros a month, as a Western company, paying someone, a professional who has working experience, let's say a senior developer, 1,000 euros a month, that's half or 1/3 of the costs that you're paying in your own country for almost the same quality or even better, or let's say, well, that's something that's not predictable. You have to find a correct partner for it. Yeah. But let's say you get the same quality for 1/3 of the price. Yeah. He was working remotely, can send you everything through Google Drive, WeTransfer, whatever. There's so many platforms to exchange data, to exchange contact information. He's not going to leave the country. He's going to use that money to invest in other stuff, in starting his own company, getting more people to work for him. When it comes to myself, I'm planning to open also a consultancy or IT business in Bosnia, and I only want to accept the people who are in this late 20s, early 30s range with quite some experience, who are looking for a better paying job. But that's only the first stage, because if you get them and you have this credibility towards Western firms, then you can also hire those let's say children. I'm calling them children, but let's say the youth, 16, 18 years old, who are still looking for an internship, to get a paid internship and to learn from this younger generation who got this experience in their own country, who did not leave, who are doing successful projects abroad, and they can transfer the knowledge to your younger generation. And this is something that is not happening in the Balkans, and which is something I benefited from a lot studying in the Netherlands. I got experienced people from Shell who were in their late 20s, 30 years old, and also people who retired, so an older generation, who came in, didn't use a book, but they just told about their experiences. How did they get out of a certain situation? And just by sharing this, I was so impressed and got so much motivation and knowledge out of that, that I also went out and do it myself. And it's something that could trigger. So we need to build it up, or let's say build down. Start with the credibility and the good quality that there is there, prevent it from leaving, and then try to transfer that down below to the younger generations.
Yeah. Great to hear.
That's a decent plan. Yeah, sounds good.
Yeah, and I think that's a great thing that you're doing. And maybe for next year, when we're having the conference again for the diaspora, you'll be an interesting guest to have over.
Definitely interested in that.
So I'll ask the ministry if they may be interested in Mr.Slavic. Can't imagine that they aren't.
Is it Slavic or Slavic?
Slavic, some say Slavic. It's just depending on from which country they are. It's really an easy term to use in every language.
Of course, yeah.
I like Slavic more now. So, but maybe one last thing to talk about before we go round off, because I think also a lot of people might have some doubts always about the Western Balkans, about entrepreneurship there, about investing, about projects. Like, what would you say about, there are risks, how can we mitigate them, and how can we show that this young generation actually has potential to, let's say, Western companies?
Yeah, it's about showing the work that they've done so far, because I know that a lot of them have been working for, let's say, 3, 5, 10 years, even in IT. But what they don't do is they don't save their own work, what they have achieved. And if they go back in history, they probably can find some examples or some websites that they've worked on, or some project that they've built, and use it to build their own portfolio. They have to prove that they have the concept the proof of concept, or that they have the quality to show it to the Western companies who are ready to invest their money. What the Western companies have to do is they have to prove that they have jobs, or let's say it doesn't have to be a job, it could be an assignment or a project that they are willing to risk, and let's say a low risk, also with a low investment budget around the project, and give it to Bosnia, to a younger group, or to a highly skilled younger generation, a group of people. Why? Otherwise, they're going to be searching for, let's say, lower educated people. That sounds really weird, but let's say, for example, in the Netherlands, the prices for someone who has a lower education or a diploma that's lower in the educational system, his wage is lower and his hourly rate is cheaper, but it doesn't mean that he has a low quality but a lot of the times it does mean that it has low quality. It's something we can debate about, but that's something that I've experienced through my own working experience, looking at highly educated people and lowly educated people. It all comes down to experience. So if they can prove that they have the quality, they're willing to accept the risk because they've a proof of concept, and the youth there has to see that there are companies willing to give them those projects. So there has to be some mutual agreement, let's say, when it comes to risks, proving to each other that they're willing to work together. And that's something that's lacking right now. So this proof is vital to this connection.
Well, I think that's a very optimistic note maybe to end on. I feel very empowered after this talk today. I feel this is...
I would say the same, and I would like to say to everybody, guys, start fostering a go-getter attitude, an entrepreneurial attitude. Even if you don't want to have your own business, it works in office jobs as well.
Exactly.
Everywhere. Go-getter, entrepreneurial. Let's fix the problem. Let's build a better world together.
Yeah, but I think that's maybe a good summary too of what we've said today. I think taking ownership of your own life is very important. That the youth in the Western Balkans has to realize there is a future, there are possibilities. You don't have to leave to achieve something, and that when this new dynamic starts to evolve, when these new role models come up and we use this new media, I think that we've shown today, with our examples, to what possibilities there are, that there are changes, that with the conference in June, ministry is doing things, the government's also realizing hey, we have some potential here. Yeah. And I think that with the focus on the younger generation, we go back to the cliches, but I think it really is the future for the Western Balkans is its younger generation. Yeah. And on that note, Sani, do you want to say anything?
I was just going to add one thing that's really important. I think we mentioned that already, but when there are young people that show that they want to take the risk and the step to actually do something, they need to be supported. For example, through these startup programs that a lot of places are now, a lot of cities are now organizing, the SBF that we visited, but also I think there's famous ones in Mostar and in Banja Luka and in Serbia. Of course, Serbia is a bit bigger, so there's more of that there. Need to support young people.
Yeah, networking events.
Yeah, so the people that do want to make the step, give them a push in the back in the right direction. Help them out.
Yeah. True.
Okay, and on that note, Dino, do you maybe want to plug anything, what you're doing, your YouTube? We mentioned Slavic already, but...
yeah, they can follow me on YouTube as Mr.Slavic or Mr.Slavic. If there's anyone of the younger listeners listening to this podcast right now or watching it, depends on from which social media platform you're looking at. You can add me on LinkedIn if you need tips for making your LinkedIn profile or building your professional career or portfolio. Because I've been having my ups and downs as well with that and found this nice balance, learned a lot on the way, and I can share that knowledge with them for free. So
great, Dino. Okay, well, thank you very much for being a guest and for your help.
You're welcome.
And everybody, want to thank you again for listening to this episode of the Balkan Talks. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our podcast on whatever platform you're listening to, iTunes, Spotify, Anchor, wherever you're listening. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, all of our social media channels. Stay up to date with what we're doing, and we'll see you again at the next episode of the Balkan Talks.
That's a wrap.